Welcome to today's devotional message from Trusting God Always. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. This space is for the weary soul, the heart wrestling in the quiet, the spirit longing for a whisper of assurance in the midst of prolonged waiting. You sit by the window, the world moving outside your pain, a relentless current of traffic, laughter, and busy feet. But inside, everything feels stalled. Time drags. The prayer you whispered weeks, months, maybe even years ago hangs in the air, a fragile request against the vast, indifferent sky, seemingly unheard, unanswered. You've replayed the promises you clung to in brighter days, verses memorized, hopes whispered. Yet the silence stretches, heavy and suffocating, like a thick fog settling over a valley. This isn't just a casual pause in life's rhythm. It's a deep, soul-level ache of waiting. It's the profound vulnerability of admitting the fear that the silence you hear is His absence, that the waiting is a no wrapped in prolonged uncertainty, a delay that feels suspiciously like abandonment. Maybe you've pictured God like a distant observer, perhaps busy with grander cosmic affairs on celestial mountains. Or worse, simply indifferent to the ache in your heart, the specific need you've laid bare before Him countless times, like oil poured out in earnest supplication. The faith that once felt like a roaring fire, fueled by breakthrough stories and answered prayers witnessed in others' lives, now feels like a flickering candle, threatened by the slightest breeze of doubt that whispers, "Is He even there?" You wonder if you prayed wrong, if your words were somehow inadequate, if you asked for the wrong thing entirely, if you somehow missed a sign planted like a mustard seed in the soil of your circumstances, or if perhaps God simply isn't going to move in the way you desperately need Him to, the way you've envisioned your deliverance or healing or provision arriving. The wilderness stretches before you, seemingly endless, and the oasis you longed for remains hidden just beyond the horizon you can see. But what if the silence isn't emptiness? What if it's a sacred hush where God is preparing to speak in a way you've never heard before? What if the waiting isn't abandonment, but a sacred space where God is doing something unseen, something deeper than you can currently comprehend, weaving strength into the very fabric of your spirit, like refining gold in the fire? Your feeling of being forgotten does not mean you are. God is not absent. He is intimately present in the midst of your wait, meticulously weaving His purpose into the very tapestry of your struggle. This journey of waiting is not a punishment, not a cosmic rejection, but an invitation into a deeper trust, a more profound understanding of a God whose timing is not bound by our calendars or our impatience, whose perspective encompasses the entire river of time, not just the small section you currently navigate. The light for your path is not in seeing the destination, but in trusting the lamplighter. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort and the hope found in His unwavering presence, even in the quietest seasons. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's build a community of hope together. Let's begin, and let His word breathe new life into yours. The heart sits in the quiet, wrestling with the weight of the unfulfilled, yearning for a sign, a breakthrough, a simple whisper that says, "I am here, I see you, I am with you, even in the waiting. Lean in. There is hope to be found in the heart of the wait. The fear of rejection wraps itself around the soul like a cold shroud. The fear that perhaps the waiting is because you aren't worthy of the answer. But God's promises are not based on our worthiness, but on His faithfulness. He sees the tears that fall like rain, collects each one, and His heart is moved with compassion. The silence is not a measure of His love, but perhaps a measure of the depth of the work He is doing within you, transforming you from the inside out while you fixate on the external circumstance. It's easy to trust God when the mountain moves, harder when you're simply given the strength to climb. This wait is the climb. It feels like being lost in the wilderness, surrounded by shadows, yet He promises to be a lamp to your feet. The light is not always a floodlight revealing the entire path, but a steady beam illuminating just the next step. Trusting God always means believing He is good, even when life feels anything but. It means holding on to the truth that His plans are for welfare, not for evil, to give you a future and a hope, even when your present feels devoid of both. The valley feels long, the shadows deep, but the valley is also where the deepest roots grow, where resilience is forged, where faith learns to stand firm, not on shifting sand, but on the bedrock of His character. The waiting isn't empty time, it's holy ground. It's the crucible where faith is tested and refined, emerging not unscathed, but stronger, purer, more aligned with His divine will. It's in the silence that we learn to discern His voice, not just in thunderous answers, but in the still, small whisper that sustains the soul. He isn't just present after the waiting, He is present in the waiting. Your story isn't paused, it's being written, line by line, in the quiet space between prayer and visible answer. You know that feeling, don't you? The one that settles deep in your gut, when a promise feels more like a whisper, carried away by the wind, than a solid rock you can stand on. It's the quiet ache of the not yet, the tension between what was spoken and what is seen. You look around at your life, perhaps at the barren spaces, the places that feel empty of the very thing you were promised, and a chilling doubt begins to creep in. Was it real? Did I mishear? Or worse, did God forget? Picture Abraham, a man whose life was already etched deeply with years, called by the voice of the Almighty. Not just called to follow, but to leave everything familiar, everything safe, his land, his kindred, his father's house. Imagine the weight of that call, the stepping out into the unknown, guided only by a voice and a vision. And then the promise, startling, breathtaking, impossible, a lineage so vast it would mirror the countless stars scattered across the night sky. His descendants would be a great nation, a channel of blessing to the entire world. He was an old man with an old wife, barren. Yet he followed. He trusted. But the years, oh, the years stretched out like an endless desert road. 1 year became 5, then 10, then 20. The starry sky remained, a constant, silent testament to the promise. But the empty tent, the quiet hum of barrenness remained too. Can you hear the echoes of those quiet conversations between Abraham and Sarah? The shared glances of longing, perhaps tinged with a growing fear. The world moved on. Other families grew. Children's laughter echoed from neighboring tents. But their story remained paused, suspended in the waiting. The ache of barrenness wasn't just physical. It was amplified by a promise that felt increasingly distant, mocked by the relentless passage of time. He wasn't merely waiting for a child. He was waiting for the very fulfillment of God's covenant, the tangible proof that the cosmic promise was rooted in their ordinary, aging flesh. This waiting wasn't a passive state of quiet contemplation. It was a crucible. It was filled with the dust of missteps, the hurried human logic that led to Hagar, the fleeting comfort of a plan B born of impatience and fear. It was marked by moments of doubt, of fear when faced with earthly kings and threats. It was a constant, grinding tension between human frailty, the impulse to control or force the outcome, and the quiet, unwavering certainty of divine faithfulness. Abraham, called the friend of God, wasn't immune to the wrestling. His faith wasn't a static, unbreakable shield. It was a muscle tested, strained, and ultimately strengthened through the very act of waiting. The spiritual insight woven into the fabric of Abraham's long wait is profound, almost paradoxical. God often plants his greatest, most world-altering promises in seasons that require immense patience, unfolding over generations, not moments. His timeline is rarely, if ever, ours. His methods often involve slow, unseen growth beneath the surface, like a seed buried deep in the earth, enduring winter before the spring. He isn't delaying to frustrate you. He is often waiting for the perfect kairos, the divine moment, while simultaneously using the waiting itself to cultivate character, deepen dependence, and teach you that his provision arrives not just at the right time, but through the waiting season. The wilderness wasn't a detour for Abraham. It was part of the path to the promised land, both literally and spiritually. Now, let your heart quieten for a moment. Reflect on a promise God has given you. It might be a word from Scripture that leaped off the page, a clear sense of direction, a prophetic utterance, or even a deep, persistent desire in your heart that you believe was planted by Him. Where are you in that story? Are you standing under the starry sky of the promise, but finding yourself living in the empty tent of the not yet? Are you in the wilderness years, the season between the initial promise and its tangible fulfillment? It's easy to hold on to hope when the signs are visible, when progress is linear. But what about when the path disappears? The Apostle Paul, centuries later, looked back at Abraham's journey and captured its essence in a powerful phrase. He said Abraham, in hope, believed against hope. Romans 4:18. Think about that gentle poetic paradox. Believing against hope. It wasn't a blind optimism ignoring reality. It was a defiant trust that looked the barrenness square in the eye, acknowledged the biological impossibility, felt the ache of the delay, and yet chose to anchor its faith in the character and capability of the one who promised, rather than the discouraging evidence of the present circumstance. It's the quiet miracle of faith that blooms in the soil of impossibility. Can you find even a flicker of that against hope belief stirring within you right now, in your own season of waiting? It doesn't require you to conjure up immense strength you don't possess. It asks for a gentle surrender of your timeline, a willingness to trust that the author of your story knows the perfect chapter for the fulfillment of his promise. It's okay to feel the tension, the fear, the doubt. Abraham did. But can you, in the quietest corner of your soul, choose to believe against what you see because you trust the one who sees everything? Let the story of Abraham, the man who waited decades for the impossible, whisper courage into your own waiting heart. Your story isn't over because the promise isn't fulfilled yet. It's simply unfolding, according to his perfect, patient plan. He sits, bound not by chains of iron, but by the invisible walls of a life gone wrong. Imagine Joseph, a vibrant coat of many colors, a whisper of dreams, a family's favor. Then, the abrupt, chilling betrayal, the dust of the pit, the cold coin of slavery, the grinding humiliation of serving strangers. And then, the deepest cut, the false accusation, the silent door slamming shut on a damp, dark prison cell. It wasn't just freedom he waited for in that suffocating space. It was vindication, the shattering of lies, the impossible resurrection of a dream God himself had planted in his youthful heart. Years bled into years. Faces passed through his view, fellow prisoners, officials, the hopeful eyes of those whose dreams he interpreted. Each release offered a flicker of hope, only to be extinguished by deafening silence as they walked free and promptly forgot the one left behind. His waiting was a layered tapestry woven with the threads of abandonment by family, betrayal by trust, and the heavy cloak of obscurity. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a profound season of isolation, born from deep personal hurt. But here lies the quiet, powerful spiritual truth. God often orchestrates or permits seasons of confinement, injustice, and being overlooked, not as punishment for some unseen sin, but as a sacred crucible. In the fire of hardship, character is refined, faith is purified, and lives are meticulously positioned for a divine purpose we cannot yet grasp from within the walls. The ache you feel today, is it the confinement of a job that stifles your spirit, a relationship tangled in pain, a health struggle that limits your world? Perhaps these are your prison walls. Remember Joseph. Genesis 39:21 whispers a truth that transcends the centuries. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison. He wasn't just observing from a distance. He was intimately present in the damp, dark cell, within the betrayal, beside the man forgotten by the world. Can you allow yourself, in this moment, to breathe in the radical possibility that God is just as intimately present with you in your confinement, that He is not absent from your pain, but is working in this space, using this challenging season for a purpose only He fully understands? Sometimes the walls that seem to hold you captive are the very boundaries God uses to hold you close, refining you in the stillness, preparing you in the shadow. He is with you, even here. You stand in the barren space, the one you didn't expect to be in for this long. You look at the dusty horizon, feeling the weariness seep into your bones, and you see echoes of a story told long ago. Think of them, the Israelites, freshly freed from generations of chains, led by a pillar of cloud and fire, standing at the threshold of abundance, of a land flowing with milk and honey. The promise felt so close, so tangible, and then, instead of entry, 40 years of wandering. 40 years under the same hot sun, on the same winding trails, in a place they felt they didn't belong. A wilderness. It was a strange season for them. A place where food fell from the sky, where water sprung from rock, where their clothes and sandals didn't wear out. Daily, undeniable miracles. Yet, it was also a place of incessant complaint, of rebellion, of doubt that hardened into unbelief. They were waiting for the promise, yes, But God was doing something deeper. He wasn't merely delaying entry. He was crafting a generation capable of inheriting the promise. The wilderness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was in the dust and the hunger that they were meant to learn dependence. It was under the constant, visible presence of God that they were meant to learn obedience. Perhaps you recognize this terrain. Maybe your wilderness isn't geographical, but emotional, financial, or spiritual. It's the waiting place between where you are and where you believe God has promised you'll be. The daily provisions arrive, strength for the day, a moment of unexpected joy, a friend's timely call. Yet like the manna, they can start to feel mundane, routine, less miraculous than the grand breakthrough you're longing for. You grapple with impatience, the quiet whisper of unbelief suggesting God has forgotten, or that the promise was a mistake. But the spiritual insight gleaned from those 40 years is profound. The waiting place is often the training ground. God doesn't just hand out promises like tokens. He prepares us for them. He works in us during the delay, shaping our character, refining our faith, teaching us to trust His daily presence, even when the destination seems impossibly distant. As Deuteronomy 8:3 reminds us, He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your current season of hunger, of lack, or of longing isn't just about what you don't have. It's about what God is trying to teach you to lean on. What wilderness lessons might God be trying to etch onto your soul right now? Perhaps lessons in surrender instead of striving, in gratitude for the manna instead of grumbling for meat, in listening for His quiet word above the clamor of your fears. What word is God speaking to you in your hunger? What truth is He wanting you to live on today? You pour out your heart again, the words tumbling into the quiet space around you. You list the needs, the fears that gnaw at the edges of your peace, the hopes that feel fragile as glass. And the response is silence. It's not just the absence of a booming answer, a clear signpost pointing the way forward. It's the absence of a felt presence, that reassuring whisper you've clung to in brighter days. It feels like shouting into a void, the echoes of your own longing, the only reply. This scene is the quiet corner of your room at dawn, the car on a lonely commute home, the middle of the night when doubts gather like shadows under the bed. You search for a tangible sense of God, a confirmation He's near, and find only the still air, the ticking clock, the sound of your own breathing. The spiritual battle here isn't just against impatience, the simple desire for a quick fix or a clear directive. It's against the insidious lie that God's silence equals His absence, that the lack of a felt touch means His indifference, or worse, His abandonment. The enemy whispers that if God cared, you'd feel it. If He was working, you'd see the mighty acts. But the truth, the profound, quiet truth, is that God often works most profoundly in the hidden, quiet spaces of our lives. He builds a faith that isn't reliant on constant, overwhelming confirmation, but on the foundational, unshakable knowledge of His character, His promises, His unwavering love. Remember Elijah on Mount Horeb? He expected God in the dramatic display, the powerful wind tearing the mountains, the earthquake shaking the ground, the fire consuming everything. But God wasn't in the spectacle. He was in the gentle whisper that followed. 1 Kings 19:11-13. Are you perhaps straining so hard to hear a thunderous answer, a sign as loud as the storms raging inside you, that you're missing God speaking in a gentle whisper you can only perceive in the stillness? Maybe the loudest answers come not through noise, but through the quiet strengthening of a surrendered heart. Ask God right now, in this silence, to attune your heart not to the clamor you expect, but to His quieter, deeper presence waiting for you in the stillness. It is in this profound stillness that trust finds its true root. You stand at the threshold of a dream, a calling, a desired future, and the door remains stubbornly shut. The polished handle is just inches from your grasp, yet it won't yield. It's a hallway you've been pacing for what feels like an eternity, watching through translucent panes as others step through their doors, into new jobs, new relationships, new seasons of visible blessing. They are moving forward, celebrating milestones, hoisting flags of progress, while you remain rooted, a silent spectator in the echoing hallway of not yet. The air in this space can feel thin, heavy with the weight of questions that have no immediate answers. The scene is one of quiet, private agony, comparing your unseen, messy middle to someone else's seemingly finished product. Their highlight reel scrolls across your vision, amplifying the static in your own frame. You see the mountain peaks they've reached, never the wilderness they crossed, the harvests they gather, not the buried seeds they wept over. And in that comparison, the subtle poison seeps in. It whispers insidious lies, that God favors the more, that your not yet means never, that you must have missed a sign, failed a test, or somehow disqualified yourself from divine momentum. This is the spiritual struggle against comparison, a battle fought not in the arena of the world, but within the quiet chambers of your own heart. The temptation to believe you are less seen, less loved, less deserving than those whose doors swing open wide is fierce, and it can chip away at the foundations of your faith. But the truth, radiant and unwavering, stands against this tide of doubt. Your not yet is not a void. It is a sacred space. It is a unique chapter in your story, written not by chance or delay, but curated by a God who understands timing beyond the tick of your clock. This hallway is not a punishment, but potentially a preparation, not a holding cell, but perhaps a hallowed ground where unseen growth is taking root. Your journey is not a competition measured against the pace of others, but a singular path with a divine author who holds the pen and knows the plot entirely. He isn't keeping good things from you. He is weaving a narrative for you. His promise rings out across the ages, a beacon in the waiting. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. These plans are personal, specific, tailored uniquely to your potential, your path, your purpose. Can you release the suffocating burden of comparison? Can you lift your gaze from the perceived finish lines of others and place it back on the one who authored your beginning? Can you trust that your chapter is unfolding exactly as it needs to, in His perfect, often mysterious timing? Sometimes the stillness is His strategy. Sometimes the delay is His divine protection. It may feel like stagnation, but perhaps it is sacred stillness, allowing the deep roots to grow before the visible blossoming. The greatest leaps are often preceded by the longest waits. She sits in the quiet room, the air heavy with unspoken prayers. Days stretch into weeks, then months. The situation remains unchanged. It feels like nothing is happening, like her faith, sown with such fervent hope, has simply fallen into barren ground. She whispers the worry aloud. Is God even listening? Is he even doing anything? The waiting isn't just frustrating. It feels like a void, a hollow space where promised action should be. It's the fear that perhaps, in the silence, God has forgotten. Imagine a seed buried deep beneath the surface of the earth. No one sees it. The sun doesn't touch it. The rain only seeps down slowly. From above, the ground is just ground, unremarkable, silent, inactive. Yet, in that hidden darkness, life is stirring. A tiny sprout reaches down, not up. Roots are forming, anchoring the seed, drawing sustenance from the unseen soil. They are strengthening, preparing, building the foundation for everything that will eventually burst forth into the light. This hidden, quiet, mind-boggling works, foundational process is a profound picture of God's work in your waiting. The spiritual truth unfolds in the darkness. God is often most active precisely when you perceive him least. When you see no outward fruit, no sudden breakthrough, no visible sign of progress, he is working intensely beneath the surface of your life. He is not idle. He is the divine gardener tending to your soul in the unseen. He is strengthening your inner resolve, not just for this season, but for future seasons you can't yet imagine. He is purifying your motivations, gently sifting away dependence on outcomes and building dependence on his character. He is developing the resilience you will desperately need when the visible growth finally appears. Your waiting is not passive emptiness. It is a season of active, unseen growth, orchestrated by the one who knows exactly what you need before you even ask. He is building roots deeper than your current struggle, a foundation stronger than your present fear. It feels like nothing, but it is everything being built. Galatians 6:9 whispers hope into the quiet soil. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up. The harvest is coming, but the due season requires the hidden work to be complete. It requires the roots to be strong enough to support the coming yield. Take a quiet moment now. Breathe. Look past the surface of your current circumstances. What root system might God be strengthening in you right now? Is it patience, perseverance, a deeper trust in his timing, a quieter dependence on his presence rather than his presence? Even if you see no fruit above ground, even if the silence feels heavy, trust the gardener. He is working. He is building. He is preparing you and the ground for the season of reaping that is surely coming. His promises meet your fear of inactivity with the profound assurance that he is never inactive. He is always working, always building, always preparing his beloved for the fullness of his purposes. The dark soil is not a tomb. It is a nursery. Trust the darkness to do its work. The silence stretches thin, taut with unspoken deadlines and the echo of unanswered prayers. You sit on the edge of anticipation, and the urge to do something, anything, becomes a relentless pressure. The waiting is no longer a holy pause. It's a vacuum that feels unbearable. It whispers lies. Maybe God isn't moving, or worse, maybe he won't. Fear, like a cold river, starts to erode the foundations of your peace. This is the dangerous edge where human franticness often takes over from divine faithfulness. You start to manipulate the circumstances, pushing doors open that clearly weren't meant for you, or settling for less than God's best, simply out of sheer exhaustion from holding the tension. It's the impulse to fill the void with your own effort, trading quiet trust for noisy striving. Think of King Saul, standing on the precipice of battle. Samuel, the prophet who was meant to offer the critical sacrifice, was delayed. The soldiers were scattering. The enemy was approaching. The pressure was immense. Saul, impatient and afraid, took matters into his own hands. He performed the sacrifice himself, stepping outside of God's clear command, bypassing the prophet's ordained role. 1 Samuel 13. The scene wasn't one of strategic courage. It was frantic activity born of fear, impatience, and a profound lack of trust in God's timing and method. The spiritual danger here is profound. We substitute human effort and control for divine timing and power. We try to build the mountain ourselves instead of trusting Him who can speak it into being. We try to force the river's path instead of flowing with the current He directs. This isn't the active faith that moves mountains. It's the anxious striving that often creates more wilderness. True faith in waiting isn't passive idleness. Like a broken lamp waiting for oil it will never seek. It's active trust, doing what God has clearly shown you to do in the present moment, tending the garden He's given you, walking the path He has illuminated, while patiently waiting for Him to do what only He can do. It is the quiet confidence that His promises are unfolding, even when you can't see the blueprint. It finds strength in stillness and discovers control in surrender. The power to overcome isn't generated by your might, nor achieved by your strenuous power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord Almighty. Zechariah 4:6. His Spirit breathes life into dry bones. Your effort just moves them around. His Spirit opens doors no man can shut. Your pushing often just splinters the frame. His Spirit brings forth growth in hidden seasons. Your forcing often uproots the tender seed. Where are you tempted to force an outcome in your waiting? What door are you trying to batter down that God hasn't opened? Can you surrender that urge to control and trust the quiet, powerful work of His Spirit instead? Can you believe that His timing is not a delay, but a part of the divine unfolding? The knuckles white, the jaw clenched tight, you hold it. Not a physical object, but a phantom weight. The calendar in your mind, the neatly drawn lines of expectation, the dreaded or desired dates you've circled in red. By this time, you told yourself. If not by then, you whispered in fear. It is your timeline, meticulously constructed, defended fiercely. It is the steering wheel you refuse to relinquish, even as the road ahead twists and turns beyond your sight. This gripping, this internal demanding of when. It is a quiet battle waged against a gentle, eternal hand. It tells God, subtly, unconsciously, that you know best how this story should unfold, and more importantly, when the climactic scene simply must arrive. But God invites you now, not to abandon hope, but to open your hands. Imagine the physical act, unclenching the fingers, letting the palms face upward, vulnerable, receptive. This is the posture of surrender, not of defeat, but of profound release. It feels counterintuitive, like stepping off a ledge you've been clinging to. You are letting go of the illusion of control over the clock face. You are consciously, intentionally laying down your self-imposed deadlines at the feet of a God who existed before time began, who holds the universe in His hand, and for whom 1,000 years are like a single day. The freedom that washes over you in that moment of release, it comes from the simple, staggering realization that you are not responsible for the timing. You were never meant to be. Your responsibility is faithfulness and obedience in the present moment, placing one foot in front of the other on the path He illuminates today. This surrender isn't about giving up on the promise God has placed in your heart. It is about trusting the promise giver with the how and the when. It is leaning back into the ancient truth whispered across millennia. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Being still in this context isn't idleness or passive waiting for a sign. It is ceasing from your own frantic striving, your own temporal manipulation, your own exhausting effort to force the bud open before its appointed season. It is trusting that God is actively, powerfully being God in your situation, even when the seconds tick by slower than your anxious heart can bear. It is acknowledging that the wilderness journey has its length, not because God is forgetful, but because the refining fire takes time. It is understanding that the seed buried in the earth requires a hidden season of darkness before it bursts into light. You relinquish control of the timing, only to discover the divine author was writing the perfect sequence all along. What timeline are you holding on to too tightly today? Can you consciously surrender it to Him, trusting the unseen wisdom behind His unhurried grace? The days blend into weeks, then months. Each sunrise feels like a repeat of the last, painted with the same brushstrokes of unanswered questions and quiet yearning. You trace the lines on your palm, wondering if your destiny is simply to sit still while the world rushes past. The email you hoped for doesn't arrive. The phone call never rings. The door remains stubbornly closed. It's easy in these barren moments to feel like God has forgotten your address, misplaced your prayer in the cosmos. This waiting feels less like a pause and more like a punishment, a vast, empty space where doubt breeds like shadows in the dusk. Your patience is wearing thin, fraying like an old rope under constant tension. Impatience whispers, "Why isn't God moving?" Self-reliance hisses, "Maybe you need to force the door open yourself." Fear trembles, "What if nothing ever changes?" But imagine, for a moment, gold in the crucible. It isn't placed there to be destroyed, but refined. The intense heat is a friend, albeit a fierce one, burning away the dross, the impurities that hide its true brilliance. Waiting is often this refining fire in our lives. The scene is the internal furnace, the moments of frustration, doubt, and discomfort that expose the dross of impatience, self-reliance, or fear residing deep within us. This isn't God's absence. It is His active, purifying presence. The spiritual work here is profound. Waiting chips away at our desperate need for control, at our quick-fix mentality that expects instant results, and it deepens, sometimes painfully, our absolute dependence on God. It cultivates patience, not just the ability to endure, but the grace to endure well. It builds perseverance, the steadfastness that refuses to collapse under the weight of unmet longing. It instills humility, the quiet recognition that His timing is perfect, His wisdom beyond our own. These are not secondary outcomes. They are qualities essential for stewarding the very things you are waiting for walking faithfully in the answered prayer when it finally arrives. The ancient wisdom echoes across the centuries, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. James 1:4. Waiting isn't just about the outcome, the job, the healing, the relationship, the breakthrough. It's about the person you are becoming in the process. It feels like loss of time, yet it's the gaining of eternal character. What dross is the fire exposing in you right now? What quiet impatience is being refined into resilient peace? What dependency on self is yielding to absolute reliance on Him? God is not static in your waiting. He is dynamically at work, chipping away the unnecessary, strengthening the foundational, preparing you not just for your blessing, but as a vessel worthy of it. Can you trust the refiner's hand even when the heat feels unbearable? He is building something precious within the silence, something stronger and more beautiful than you can yet see. Rest in the knowing that the waiting is holy work. The calendar pages flip, but the longed-for change doesn't arrive. The prayer echoed in the quiet, but the expected door remains shut. It feels like life is on hold, stuck in a slow, frustrating rhythm that doesn't match the urgency in your heart. You see others moving forward, reaching milestones, while you navigate what feels like a stagnant season, a delay you didn't sign up for. Doubt whispers, does God even see this clock ticking? Does He care about my timeline? This waiting isn't just passive. It often feels like a wilderness, a test of endurance where impatience is a constant, gnawing companion. Your perspective is limited, bound by the horizon you can see right now, by the desires pressing in today. You measure progress in days and weeks, maybe months or a few years if you're being generous. You yearn for clarity, for a visible sign, for movement that aligns with your hopes and plans. The silence feels vast, and the delay feels personal, perhaps even punitive. You wonder what you did wrong, what you missed, or if you misunderstood the promise entirely. This is where the human timeline clashes head-on with the divine, where our urgent needs meet God's eternal patience, where our tiny understanding bumps against His infinite view. But what if you could step back, not just a step, but a leap, a cosmic jump beyond the ticking seconds and numbered days that define your earthly experience? Imagine trying to explain the intricate dance of a global pandemic, its economic ripples, its societal shifts, to a young child whose world is measured in minutes until snack time or hours until bedtime. Their perspective is utterly, beautifully limited. They see only the immediate, the tangible. Their concept of time is bound by their current understanding. In a profound yet humble way, this mirrors our view of God's timeline. His perspective on time is not just vaster, it's infinite. He doesn't experience time as we do, a linear progression from past to future. He inhabits eternity. He sees the beginning from the end simultaneously. He sees how this period of unexpected delay isn't just a pause button. It's a crucial preparation for a future you can't yet fathom. He sees how the breakthrough you long for, when it does arrive, might not just be for you, but will ripple outwards, touching lives you haven't even met, impacting circumstances you can't yet perceive. This is the heart of Isaiah 55, 8-9, a divine declaration that both challenges and comforts. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. His ways include His timing. His thoughts encompass the eternal plan. He sees the interconnectedness of every moment, how this waiting period prepares you, how your current struggle builds the muscle of faith needed for the mountain ahead, or how your eventual breakthrough might light the path for someone else trapped in their own valley of waiting. The scene is one of stepping back from your immediate, limited view and attempting, however feebly, to see through God's eternal lens, understanding that the tapestry of your life is part of a much larger, divinely woven masterpiece. The spiritual comfort isn't in understanding the details of His timing, we often can't, but in trusting the character of the one setting the pace. God's timing isn't random delay, not some cosmic oversight because He's too busy elsewhere. It is perfectly orchestrated, within a plan that is far grander, far more intricate, far more loving than your individual desires, fears, or deadlines can comprehend. He might be waiting for the precise spiritual maturity in you, the exact alignment of external circumstances, the perfect moment for His glory to be most powerfully revealed. He might be using this delay to prune away dependencies, cultivate resilience, or deepen your root system in Him, like a tree that seems dormant above ground but is quietly building strength below. The wilderness often feels like punishment or neglect, but for God's people, it has always been a place of profound preparation and intimate encounter. Can you lean into the paradox that the greatest lessons are often learned in the longest waits? Can you embrace the mystery that surrender can be a swifter path than striving? This God, who holds eternity in His hands, who orchestrated the galaxies with precision, also holds your specific timeline, every second of it. His apparent delay isn't rooted in indifference or inability. It is rooted in perfect wisdom and boundless love. Trusting His perspective means letting go of your stopwatch and picking up His promise. It means recognizing that while you see a closed door, He sees the entire journey, the hidden pathways, and the purpose behind every pause. He is not just managing time. He is the master weaver, integrating every thread of your life, every delay included, into a masterpiece that will ultimately declare His goodness and faithfulness. Surrendering your anxious timeline to His eternal one is not a sign of giving up, but of profound, active faith, believing that even when you cannot trace His hand, you can trust His heart, and that His timing, however incomprehensible now, is perfectly unfolding for your good and His glory. The days stretch into weeks, maybe months. You're waiting for a door to open, for a word of clarity, for the storm to pass. The silence feels heavy, punctuated only by the crashing waves of what if and when will it end. It's easy to feel lost at sea, tossed by currents of anxiety and doubt. Every prayer feels like a whisper swallowed by the wind. Every hope, a fragile ship, battered by the relentless waves of uncertainty. But what if peace isn't the absence of the storm? What if it's the anchor that holds you firm in the storm? Imagine standing on a ship deck, the wind whipping your hair, the waves rising and falling around you, but beneath you, a solid chain connects you to the seabed. You feel the rocking, you hear the roar, but you are not adrift. This is the peace God offers in the pause. It's not found in the resolution of the waiting, the moment the shore appears or the storm ceases. It's found in the presence of God within the waiting itself. He is the seabed, the unmovable foundation beneath the churning waters. The spiritual power here is profound. Waiting ceases to be just a period of agonizing deficiency, a blank space on the calendar marking what hasn't happened yet. It becomes a sacred space of quiet communion, a crucible where trust is not just tested, but forged stronger. The Apostle Paul knew this peace. He wrote from prison, facing profound uncertainty, yet he urged, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And then the promise, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:6-7. This isn't a call to ignore the waves, but to actively choose faith over fear, trust over turmoil, presenting it all, the fear, the need, the hope, to the one who calms the seas or holds you steady through them. Peace in the pause is not idleness. It is a holy form of active rest. It's finding stillness, not by having all answers, but by trusting the one who holds them all. You cultivate this internal calm, not by making the external chaos disappear, but by fixing your gaze on the King of Peace within the chaos. It's a beautiful, gentle paradox. You find your greatest strength not in striving, but in surrendering. You find abundance not in getting what you lack, but in recognizing the richness of His presence in the lack. Today, in the midst of your waiting, can you invite this peace to guard your heart and mind? Can you shift your focus from the crashing waves around you to the unwavering presence within you? It's a choice, moment by moment, to breathe deep, to pray, to give thanks even for the breath you have, and to allow the peace that makes no earthly sense to be your anchor. Let His peace transform your waiting today, from a lonely deficiency into a quiet, strengthening communion. You sit in the silence, the quiet pressing in, heavy with the weight of expectation and unanswered prayers. The path ahead feels shrouded, maybe even disappeared entirely. This season of waiting stretches out like a barren wilderness under a moonless sky, and you find yourself whispering, "Has He forgotten?" The wind taps the window, a sound that might be just the weather, but feels, in this stillness, like a gentle reminder that something is still moving outside your frozen reality. Even in the longest, darkest night, the blackest canvas reveals pinpricks of light. Stars, seemingly insignificant against the vast, consuming darkness, appear. They aren't the sun, they don't promise immediate warmth or the end of the night, but they offer tiny, undeniable points of light against the overwhelming void. In your season of waiting, God often provides these glimmers of hope, small confirmations, unexpected encouragements, moments of grace that whisper, "I see you, I am here." The scene shifts. It's not a dramatic rescue, but a quiet moment of noticing the small things. A timely text from a friend, completely unaware of your struggle, carrying just the words you needed to hear. Flipping through your Bible, a specific verse seems to leap off the page, not just read, but felt in the core of your being, speaking directly to your deepest fear. After pouring out your heart in prayer, a sudden, inexplicable sense of peace settles over you, not erasing the problem, but calming the storm within. A small door opens, not the one you desperately wanted, but an unexpected opportunity, a slight shift in circumstances that confirms you are still moving forward, just perhaps not in the way you expected, along a hidden path only He can see. These glimmers are not random occurrences. They are God's gentle, intentional signposts. They are reaffirmations of His active presence, not just in the grand design, but in the minute details of your daily landscape. They are whispers of His leading, guiding you forward step by careful step through the uncertainty. Sometimes, movement is not in giant strides, but in the steady flicker of a small lamp carried through the dark, illuminating just the next few feet. The spiritual significance of these moments is profound. They are living proof of His promise. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Psalm 35. The morning, the breakthrough, the answer, the resolution, may not be here yet. The night of waiting can feel endless, but the glimmers appearing in the night are not just random lights. They are God's assurance, glimpses of the coming dawn, irrefutable evidence that the sun will rise. They are His way of strengthening your grip on faith when your fingers feel numb with cold and doubt. He is not asking you to conjure the sunrise yourself, but simply to notice the stars He has placed in your sky. What small glimmers of God's presence, however faint, can you choose to open your eyes to and be genuinely thankful for today? It is in the gratitude for the glimmers that the strength to endure the night is found. The weariness sits heavy in your bones. Another morning dawns, and the circumstance hasn't shifted. The prayer spoken 1,000 times feels thin in the air, unanswered echoes in an empty room. You've been sowing, haven't you? Sowing kindness when hurt, sowing patience when provoked, sowing faith when doubt whispered loudest. But the harvest, it feels like a mirage, forever shimmering just beyond the horizon. You wonder if the ground is barren, if the seeds were scattered to the wind, if the effort in this long, silent season was simply in vain. Yet a whisper from the ancient text cuts through the doubt. There is a proper time for everything under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. This isn't some vague cosmic principle. It is a divine guarantee stamped into the fabric of creation, a promise etched into God's very nature. He doesn't work on our hurried clock, but on a sacred calendar where every moment is precisely marked. There is a perfect time for breakthrough, for healing, for restoration, for the fulfillment of the quiet hopes whispered in the dark. It's a moment only He knows, a divine appointment set before the world began. This truth fuels a different kind of waiting. It births perseverance. Let us not become weary in doing good, the apostle urges, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. The wait is not an empty void. It is the fertile ground where seeds are sown. Your faithful endurance today, the quiet act of trust despite the lack of visible fruit, the simple choice to keep praying, keep hoping, keep doing the good God has called you to, these are the seeds. They are not wasted effort. They are investments in a guaranteed future harvest, ordained for the proper time. The pain of the wait often overshadows the certainty of the future. We fixate on the dry earth, forgetting the promise of rain. We see the small, hidden seed and doubt the mighty tree it will become. But God's promise shifts the focus. It anchors your hope, not in the current discomfort, but in the absolute certainty of His timing and His word. Your effort now is not about making the harvest come, but about preparing for it, living faithfully in the season you are in. The very waiting is the sowing. What seeds are you called to faithfully continue sowing today? Is it patience with a loved one, diligence in a mundane task, generosity with limited resources, quiet faith in the face of uncertainty? Don't let weariness rob you of your harvest. Your sowing matters. It is seen. And at the proper time, the divine guarantee will unfold. Trust the calendar He holds. Keep sowing in hope, for the season of reaping is coming. You sit in the quiet ache of expectation. Another day dawns, looking much like the one before, and the one before that. You feel the subtle weight of the waiting label settling onto your shoulders. I'm the one still looking for work. I'm the one battling this chronic illness. I'm the one whose marriage is on the brink. I'm the one praying the same unanswered prayer. It's so easy, isn't it? To let the circumstances become your name tag. To let the unresolved season define the person looking back at you in the mirror. You measure your worth, your progress, your very self by the shifting sands of your situation. The wilderness feels less like a temporary path and more like your permanent address. Your lamp feels low on oil, not just waiting for the bridegroom, but maybe waiting for the journey itself to end. But look closer. Feel deeper. The truth God breathes over you is not tied to the outcome you long for. It is not dependent on the door opening, the healing arriving, the relationship mending, or the answer appearing. Your truest identity is not found in the wait itself, nor in the destination at the end of it. Your identity is found in Christ, right now, in this moment of uncertainty, in this valley of not yet. God doesn't see the one waiting for a job. He sees his beloved child. He doesn't label you the one with the struggle. He calls you chosen, redeemed, perfectly known, and deeply loved. This is not a future promise waiting to be activated. This is a present reality. Before the world spun, he knew you. In your messy middle, he loves you. After your wait concludes, he will still call you his own. Your value is not earned by overcoming the storm. It is inherent because you belong to the one who commands the storm. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. 1 John 3:1. This truth strips away the temporary labels that circumstances try to stick on you. Your worth, your security, your very foundation is not built on the outcome of your waiting, but on your unchanging, unwavering position in Christ. The paradox is gentle but profound. You are fully accepted and utterly secure while you are still in process. Your identity is anchored in Him, independent of your wait. How can you live from that truth today? How can you let the whisper of child of God silence the shouts of the one still waiting? Can you let your identity in Him anchor you, even when the waves of uncertainty crash against the shore? Can you breathe in the knowledge that your Father looks at you and delights in who you are, not just in what you might become or what you might achieve? Let that sacred truth be your guide, your comfort, and your quiet rebellion against defining yourself by anything less than His perfect love. Your wait is a chapter, but your identity is the eternal story written by His grace. You sit in the silence, the kind that feels heavy, weighted with unanswered prayers and the echo of your own sighs. Your hands, once clenched in fervent pleading, now rest open, empty. The wind outside whispers, perhaps the only sound breaking the stillness. And for a moment, it feels like God Himself is just beyond the window, waiting. Waiting for you or waiting with you. The path ahead is obscured. It's not just hazy. It feels dissolved, lost in the mist of uncertainty. You took steps of faith, maybe big ones, maybe tiny, trembling ones, but they didn't lead where you expected. Now you stand still, stuck in a season you didn't choose, a season of prolonged waiting. This isn't the victorious charge you envisioned. It's the quiet, often frustrating stand. And in this stand, doubt can creep in like a cold draft under the door. Did I hear God right? Is he even moving? Does he see me here, frozen in this space? But what if this waiting isn't just a pause to be endured, a gap between now and then? What if it's something sacred? What if this very season, this quiet, empty space, is an invitation to a different kind of worship? Imagine it, your open, empty hands, lifted not in demand, but in offering. You're not presenting your accomplishments, your strength, or your clear path forward. You're offering the waiting itself, the ache of delay, the vulnerability of not knowing, the willingness to remain in the stillness because He is in the stillness. This is a sacrifice of faith, profound and deeply beautiful. It's saying, God, I don't understand this time. I don't like this stillness, but I offer it to you. My trust is in you, not in the speed of the answer or the clarity of the path. My faith is in who you are in this moment, even when I can't see what you're doing. This is worship in the wilderness, praising Him not because the storm has passed, but because He is with you in the storm, perhaps even as the storm rages. Remaining obedient not because the path is clear, but because your trust in the guide is unwavering, even when the fog is thickest. This quiet, often unseen act of offering your waiting heart is a powerful demonstration that your faith is anchored in Him, not in the arrival of the things you hope for. It transforms a season that feels like a drain, a season of potential frustration, anxiety, and spiritual lethargy, into an opportunity to honor God in a unique way. It's a paradoxical act, gaining ground by standing still. The prophet Isaiah paints a picture for those who find themselves in this space, weary from the journey, waiting for God's timing. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Isaiah 40:31. Look closely at those words. The renewal of strength doesn't come after the waiting ends. It comes through the act of waiting on Him. It's strength for the wait, not just for the destination. It's strength that allows you to rise above the immediate pressure, to see from a higher perspective, like an eagle soaring, even while your feet are still planted in the difficult ground of waiting. This strength isn't mustered from within your own depleted reserves. It's a renewal, a fresh infusion of divine power that meets you precisely in that space of reliance and surrender. It's a quiet miracle unfolding in the unmoving moments. It's finding an unexpected wellspring in the driest season. It's receiving provision in the process of deprivation. Think of the tired parent waiting for their child's breakthrough, the entrepreneur waiting for the funding to come through, the person waiting for healing, the heart waiting for reconciliation, the soul waiting for clarity on purpose. The temptation is to strive, to fret, to grow bitter, or to simply give up. But God invites us to make this waiting holy, to lift the empty hands and say, "Here I am, God, still waiting, still trusting, still yours. This is my offering." This act of offering your waiting, of choosing to trust Him precisely when the timeline is unknown and the way is unclear, reframes the entire experience. It moves from being something passively endured to something actively offered. It becomes less about your frustration and more about His faithfulness. It becomes a testament to the fact that you believe He is working, even when you cannot trace his steps. Can you do that today? Can you lift your open, empty hands, not demanding, but offering your trust, your patience, your uncertainty, your waiting heart as a sacrifice? Can you believe that as you do, he will meet you right there in that quiet, still space and begin to renew your strength in ways you couldn't manufacture on your own? This is the spiritual beauty of waiting as worship. It's transforming your most challenging season into one of your deepest encounters with his presence and power, demonstrating a faith that clings to the giver, even when the gift seems delayed. You sit in the raw ache of silence, the heavy weight of prayers that seem to echo back unanswered from an empty sky. You've wrestled with the impatience that gnaws at your edges and the insidious tendrils of doubt that wrap around your hope. You've seen the stories of others unfolding, perhaps comparing your stalled reality to their forward motion, the whispers of, "Why not me?" A constant battle in your mind. You try to control what you cannot, desperately seeking a handle on the unpredictable waves, and the fear that God has simply forgotten you, left you behind in this waiting room, feels profoundly real. But look back with me, not just at your own journey, but at the ancient paths worn smooth by those who walked before you. Abraham waited decades for the promised son, holding on to a promise that seemed biologically impossible. Joseph languished in pits and prisons, his dreams gathering dust in forgotten corners for years on end. David fled through wilderness caves, hunted by a jealous king, his anointing seemingly mocked by his circumstances. And the Israelites? 40 years wandering in a desert that should have taken 11 days, learning painful lessons in dependence and obedience. Their stories were not footnotes about God's absence. They were grand narratives woven with his unseen, sovereign hand, orchestrating events behind the veil of their perception. The uncomfortable, yet deeply purifying truth we return to is this: waiting is rarely about God withholding something good, but about him accomplishing something profound in you. It is the divine crucible where your motives are tested and purified, where the dross of self-reliance is burned away. It is the sculptor's patient work, shaping your character to bear the weight of the breakthrough he is preparing. It is the quiet ground where trust sinks its roots deep into the only soil that never erodes, the unchanging character of God himself. This waiting isn't wasted time. It is sacred space, a holy pause designed to position you perfectly for the moment his answer arrives, a breakthrough that will resonate with greater meaning and impact precisely because of the long, quiet preparation. Stronger than any whisper of comparison, any urge to control, any fear of being forgotten, is the bedrock truth of God's unwavering, unfailing faithfulness. He was faithful to Abraham, bringing Isaac forth as a testament to his promise against all human odds. He was faithful to Joseph, elevating him from the absolute lowest point to the highest position of influence at the precise moment the world needed him most. He was faithful to Israel, guiding them through the wilderness with pillar and cloud, manna and water, teaching them total dependence before leading them into the promised land, flowing with milk and honey. And he is unequivocally, eternally faithful to you. Your story, right now, is still being written. It is not abandoned, not forgotten. It is being penned by the very same author who orchestrated the lives of Abraham, Joseph, and Israel with perfect precision, infinite wisdom, and unwavering love. The silence you perceive is not evidence of his inactivity. Often, it signifies that he is working in ways so foundational, so profound, so far beneath the surface that your current sight cannot grasp the magnitude of it. The delay you feel isn't denial, it is divine timing, the careful calibration of a creator who sees the end from the beginning. Your waiting is not empty. It is fertile ground where your roots grow deeper, where your faith is refined like golden fire, and where your dependence on the only one who holds the universe in his hands becomes the unbreakable anchor for your soul. You are not alone in this quiet space. You are held. The God who embarked on this good work within you, who planted the seed of faith and whispered promises over your life, will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. This is a timeless truth about his steadfast love and absolute reliability. What does this mean for your steps today? It means walking not by sight, but by trust, believing in his heart when you cannot trace his hand in the unfolding events. It means trusting his timing, even when the clock feels impossibly slow, when the season you long for seems forever, just out of reach. It means trusting his presence, even when the silence feels like a deafening roar, for he is closer than you know, actively working, weaving the intricate threads of your life into a tapestry of his perfect plan. Even in the deepest silence, his presence sings over you, a quiet lullaby of unwavering love and absolute faithfulness. Let this truth be the soft pillow for your weary head. These hidden seasons, the long waits, and the unseen work are not wasted chapters. They are the sacred spaces where God crafts your most holy stories. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough.